One of the biggest weeks of the NFL season is here. It's Turkey Week, baby, and a lot of teams have their hopes and dreams on the line, and a win or loss could very much shape their future and if they're in the running for a playoff spot. Welcome to my preview and predictions for Week 12 of the 2023 NFL season. I'm looking to bounce back in a big way. I have just been an absolute joke these last couple of weeks with my Preds. Last week going a very mediocre 8-6. Let's see if we can get those wins back up into the double-digit territory. And first up on Thanksgiving Day in the afternoon, the Green Bay Packers are taking on their division rival Detroit Lions. While obviously the Lions will be the clear-cut favorites going into this one, there's maybe a bit of mystery and interest behind this one, as last week was very telling, with Detroit really struggling against the Bears first and foremost. That game was not pretty at all, and it took a last-second comeback to narrowly avoid disaster, while the Green Bay Packers came off a surprising win against the Chargers in perhaps their best game of the season so far, and one thing that may actually save their playoff hopes. This game could be closer than we think, and I would definitely keep a watchful eye on the Lions thanks to the last couple of weeks, but in the end, I think you kind of have to pick them. They're clearly the better football team, the more experienced one at that, and they happen to be a pretty good team at home, 4-1 overall, while the Packers are not a very good road team, 1-4. So I'm going to pick Detroit just because they are the better team, but there are some concerns looming, and they definitely need to come out big and win convincingly here. Next up, the other traditional Thanksgiving game. The Cowboys are going to be hosting the Washington Commanders. The Cowboys have looked very strong this month. Dak Prescott has been putting up some very great games. The defense has been stringing together some great performances as well. And they're playing a Commanders team that has been very up and down. In some weeks, they're almost beating the Philadelphia Eagles. In others, like we saw last week, they're losing to Tommy DeVito and turning the ball over 6 times. With that kind of inconsistency, it's hard to believe they stand much of a chance against the Cowboys. They'll probably win this one by multiple scores. You gotta give it to Dallas. But I will say, I think the Commanders are going to put up a decent fight. Maybe a slightly closer game than anticipated. It's highly doubtful they're going to play as bad as they did last week. That's very hard to top. I know they're playing a good Dallas defense, but man, they're definitely going to turn the ball over less. Sam Howell, I think, has had some really good games this year, and he might bounce back a little. But in the end, this Cowboys team just will overwhelm them. Not expecting much here, but hoping for a good game. And wrapping up Thanksgiving, the 49ers play the Seattle Seahawks in an NFC West battle. Now, after what I saw last week, and generally how this year has gone, I don't know how much I want to trust the Seahawks anymore. Anytime it feels like they have a real opportunity to distinguish themselves as a solid football team, they end up having games like we saw against the Rams. It's just unacceptable to lose to them twice, even though the Rams are a decent team. Seattle did have some mistakes happen, yes, and the whole quarterback situation was a disaster, but man, it feels like that never should have been a contest to begin with. Sorry, not sorry. And with Geno Smith's health greatly in question, and in the 49ers on the other hand on a big-time roll, San Francisco should be winning this one with relative ease. Yeah, Seattle are a much better team at home, but with all their question marks and how they never seem to perform against the good teams, Niners should be taking this. And now, for the first time, I can't believe I'm saying this, we have Friday afternoon NFL action on Prime Video. Dolphins versus Jets, another divisional battle, and oh lord, the Jets are a disaster. Their defense, try as they might, just can't get off the field. They play so well, they give their offense so many opportunities, but that offense can't do anything. That O-line is complete and utter garbage. Zach Wilson is complete and utter garbage. And now it's to the point where the Jets are starting Tim Boyle at quarterback in hopes that they can play at least a little bit better on the offensive end. And if that's where you're at, I mean, you're just screwed. Yes, your defense is good, and maybe you could slow down Tyreek Hill a little bit with Sauce Gardner, but over time, that Jets defense is going to be exhausted from being on the field all the time, and the Dolphins usually beat the bad teams, so Miami should take this one pretty easily. Now for your Sunday afternoon slots. First, the Saints versus the Atlanta Falcons, and I don't really know what to think of this. Both teams have been anything but impressive this season. They've had major ups and downs, lots of inconsistencies, but I think in the end, you probably prefer the Saints in this one. I say that with great hesitance because, again, they're nothing special, but Atlanta, I really don't like the idea of going back to Desmond Ridder. It felt like the offense was starting to show some life with Taylor Heineke in there. They re-evaluated their quarterback situation over the bye week, and they felt like Desmond Ridder really still is their guy, and I think they're going to pay for it. He just doesn't look good. I don't trust him in the clutch, and Derek Carr, even though he has been up and down, that's someone that I can trust at least a little bit. So Saints probably edge out a ugly contest. Next up, oh boy, here it comes, Steelers versus Bengals. A very big game in terms of AFC playoff implications here, and it could be ugly. The Bengals are walking into this with all of the wind out of their sails. Joe Burrow, their leader, their big-time superstar quarterback, going down for the season in that game against the Baltimore Ravens. And now in his place is backup quarterback Jake Browning, who to his defense had like a couple of okay drives against the Ravens in that game. But I don't know how much you could trust an inexperienced guy like that, even with good talent around him, for an entire match against that Steelers defense. It could get rough for him. But the Bengals still might have a chance, unironically, because the Steelers' offense is trash. Yes, they did fire Matt Canada this week, which is massive. That guy was a terrible play caller. But whether he's there or not, it's not like Kenny Pickett has thrown the football very well. So with how horrible that Steelers' offense will continue to be most likely, this could be a game. But just because over time it's more likely for the Bengals offense to make mistakes, I think I'm going to roll with the Steelers. I am saying that with great hesitance. I think there is a world where the Bengals could somehow win this one, but I'll stick with the Steelers just because it makes, I guess, a little bit more sense. Moving up, you got the Titans taking on the Panthers. Dear Lord save us all, this game is terrible. Both of these teams are, in fact, terrible. If you willingly sit down to watch this game, you must really enjoy feeling pain because, dear God, it is probably going to be a snoozer unless Derrick Henry has one of his iconic dominant games. The Titans just haven't been able to move the ball that well. They don't have enough opportunities to do anything. They feel like a lifeless corpse compared to a couple of years ago, but they should be in a position to win this game as they are a decent team at home, and they'll probably have a good number of opportunities to score because the Panthers are literally the worst team in football by a country mile. The Panthers are very uninspiring on both sides of the ball, and Bryce Young can't throw a ball accurately past 3 feet, and his offensive line can't block for crap either. In the end, I think the Titans should have enough talent to edge out a game against Carolina with all of that in mind, although I wouldn't be surprised if this ends up being a really sloppy close game, but give me Tennessee. Next, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers versus the Indianapolis Colts. This one's interesting as I feel these two are very close to each other from a skill perspective. Their quarterback situations are very close. I think Gardner Minshew and Baker Mayfield are comparable in terms of the seasons they've had. They also both have a decent run game and a somewhat serviceable defense. This could be a really fun matchup and maybe one of the better games of the week. But in the end, I actually favor the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I think they're the better football team. It's not by a country mile or anything, but I do think in recent weeks, while the Colts have been winning, they have benefited greatly from some very bad football teams in their way. The Panthers and the Patriots are amongst two of the worst in the league. And even in those games, they didn't exactly look inspiring, while the Buccaneers have played some very tough opponents and have hung in there with most, if not all of them. I think they have a bit more momentum going for themselves, and they have a really good opportunity to get near 500, and I think they're going to go out there and they're going to take it. It might be a really close one because I don't know how the Bucs handled Jonathan Taylor, for example, but I do think the Bucs will win a close game. Maybe they have a clutch drive late, or they have a good stop. Something's going to happen. I just think they're more trustworthy, but could go either way. Next, we have the Jaguars versus the Houston Texans. A huge battle in the AFC South. Oh man, this one is super interesting. The last time these two played, the Houston Texans ended up beating the Jaguars convincingly, and this was before CJ Stroud's hot streak. And since that loss to the Texans, the Jags have won 6 of their last 7 games, a bunch of which they've looked really, really good. So I don't know if the Texans are going to have it in them to pull off this type of magic again. Trevor Lawrence has played better as of late. The Jaguars are definitely a more complete team and a more experienced one at that. But deep down, I'm kind of liking the vibes of the Texans. I'm going to pick Houston to once again upset the Jaguars. Not that it's really much of an upset at this point, because the Texans have played amazing as of late. But I'm a big believer in the CJ Stroud magic. He has proven me wrong time after time, and I'm ready to board that hype train. I could see CJ yet again leading a big game-winning drive late in this one, or maybe even there is a world where the Texans can win this somewhat convincingly again. They played the Jaguars extremely well in that last contest, and every once in a while their defense steps up big. I think they're going to come in feeling confident against that Jags offense because they only held them to 17 points the last time. It should be closer though than the last game, but I'm going to take a risk and just go with the Texans. Maybe I regret this, but why not let it fly? And last, but certainly not least in the 1 p.m. slot, we have the Toilet Bowl, ladies and gentlemen. The New England Patriots versus the New York Giants. Get your popcorn ready. This is going to be a disaster. The Patriots, coming off a bye week where they put up 6 points the week before against the Colts, are now trying to experiment with their quarterback situation. Coach Bill Belichick even saying that all guys should be ready, all hands on deck. So in other words, he really doesn't know who's going to be starting in that game, and that is definitely a concern. Their offense has been absolutely horrible. A changeup could be necessary over Mac Jones, but there's no telling if either of the other guys will be much better, and this Giants defense has put together some great performances this year, so the Pats I'm not expecting to put up a lot of points again. And on the other hand, the Giants are coming off a surprise win against the Washington Commanders, where Tommy DeVito, despite being sacked like 10 times or whatever it was, actually threw some really good passes and put up some good numbers in a huge Giants win. The Giants coaching staff is finally letting off the leash a little, letting him throw the ball and be confident in himself, letting him grow as a leader, which is great to see. But you have to remember that the big reason the Giants won that game against the Commanders is because of that turnover differential. 6 forced turnovers is what let the Giants have all of those chances. Could they realistically do that again? I don't really think so. That is just a lot. It is definitely unlikely, even if the Patriots offense is that bad. I just don't think they're going to do what the Commanders did. And at the same time as well, Belichick usually does very well with game planning against young, inexperienced quarterbacks like Tommy DeVito. I think he's probably going to have a nightmare game this time around. He's going to force mistakes, and that's going to even the playing field just enough for the Patriots to win what will probably be a very low-scoring, ugly game. Moving into the 4 p.m. games, first is what I consider to be maybe the most interesting game of the week. The Cleveland Browns versus the Denver Broncos, two of the hottest teams in football going right at each other. The Browns are coming off a surprising win with their backup quarterback now as the starter. Their defense put up a masterclass performance, and the Steelers shot themselves in the foot a lot, leading to an impressive game-winning drive victory late in that game. The Browns have been playing some very clutch football. They've been extremely dominant on the defensive side, and that might just continue again against the Broncos. Realistically, with that historic defense, they just might win a lot of their games anyway from here on out, but the Broncos are nothing to scoff at. I've been really down on them the last few weeks, despite them putting up some good wins, and no more. Russell Wilson's been leading some clutch drives. The defense has been stepping up. I don't even know who this Broncos team is anymore. They've genuinely been very impressive. And in this win streak, they've beaten some good teams. That win against the Vikings was massive. They've beaten the Chiefs and the Bills. You gotta like where the Broncos are at right now. 5-5 with a chance to truly build up their momentum even more. Now, I think this game could go either way. The Browns defense is going to keep them in it for sure, but I don't know how much I trust that rookie quarterback of theirs to put up enough points to keep pace in the long run. The Broncos may struggle to put up points in this one, but Russell Wilson and that offense is a lot more trusted than whatever the heck the Browns can dish out. So I think I'm going to go with the Broncos. Maybe it'll be a low-scoring game. It probably will be. But Broncos, I think, over time are going to wear down that Browns defense as they probably keep them on the field a lot. Next up, the Rams versus the Cardinals. This one is interesting. I know I kind of say that every week since Kyler Murray has come back, but that's the truth. In winnable games like this, he's pretty good at elevating his team and pulling off some improbable stuff. It's not going to be easy, but there is a world where they could win this matchup. But the Rams, on the other hand, they are coming off a pretty big win over Seattle, maybe building that confidence back up, stopping the losing streak. Some of their guys are returning from injury. They're getting healthier. That run game's going to be back at full strength, I believe, this week with Kyren Williams returning from IR potentially. The Rams are in a pretty decent spot to win this game. They're more talented. I think they should be able to move the ball a bit more efficiently, and I don't really know how the Cardinals are going to game plan for Aaron Donald, so I say the Rams take it. Moving up to the 425 slot, the Chiefs take on the Vegas Raiders, an AFC West battle. The Raiders have made a habit of playing the Chiefs pretty close over the years, but I think after losing to the Philadelphia Eagles, the Chiefs are going to come out angry in this one and ready to go. They should be taking care of business against the Raiders. Usually they own these guys. They practically never have lost to them in the Patrick Mahomes era. I believe in the Chiefs to be okay, despite the concerns at the receiver situation. Maybe a loss to the Eagles will bring down their confidence a bit, and it could be slightly closer than anticipated. But Aiden O'Connell against that Chiefs defense, I don't know how he's going to do. I think maybe he could lead a couple of good drives with Devontae Adams and Josh Jacobs getting it going, but Pat Mahomes and the Chiefs just have more weapons overall, more confidence in that group, so they should have it. Now for one of the other big games of the week, the Buffalo Bills versus the Philadelphia Eagles. Ooh, this one is spicy. The Eagles just came off a huge win against the Kansas City Chiefs that is going to instill so much confidence in them after that Super Bowl revenge game, so to speak. But the Buffalo Bills may not be as easy as we think. The Bills, as of late, have not played that great. They had that bounce-back win against the Jets, but overall have looked sloppy in recent weeks. Eagles fans may not be taking this game that seriously as a result, but something tells me this game is going to be a lot closer than we think. The Bills, they just have this habit of randomly getting hot. It feels like they may be going on another one of those streaks right now. They fired their offensive coordinator. Things seem a bit better. They have a lot more confidence. So I would not be surprised if the Bills win this game. I am super tempted to pick them. But I think maybe because it's a bit too risky, I'm going to hold back from temptation and I'm going to stick with the Eagles. I decided to go against them last week and I heavily regretted it despite them being one of my Super Bowl favorites this year. So I got to get back on the train and believe in those boys, much to my dismay as a Giants fan. I think I'm going to pick the Eagles in this game for two reasons. One is that I was impressed with their ability to stay in that game against the Chiefs last week and rally together as a team down multiple scores to get that big W, even if they maybe got a little lucky because of that drop. But also, the Bills, even though they had that big game and there's reason for them to maybe go on a streak again, they did only beat the Jets, who have been one of the worst offenses in the league. I mean, their offensive line might as well be made of paper mache. So against a real challenge, I don't know how much I can trust them just yet. They still have a lot to prove. The Eagles are the more proven team right now, so Philly all the way. And on Sunday night, the Baltimore Ravens play the LA Chargers. I find this one somewhat interesting because, you know, it's two marquee quarterbacks, two interesting, popular teams, but I don't know if the Chargers can do it. Part of me just thinks they're going to lose another heartbreaker. That's all they've been doing this year. And after a loss to the Packers last week, oh yeah, they're in the danger zone right now. Their defense is trash. Lamar and the Ravens might just run all over them. And now they don't have Joey Bosa either, so things realistically only get worse. The Chargers are either going to end up losing a close game in heartbreaking fashion, or they'll get blown out. I just don't see a world where they can win this game. They're the anti-clutch, unlucky team. Nothing goes right for these guys ever. Although I am a little interested to see how the Ravens offense operates without Mark Andrews. He is the favorite target of Lamar Jackson, so maybe that makes things a bit more complicated. But overall, because of how bad that Chargers defense is, the Ravens probably find a way to win this game anyway. Their defense is also very reliable. It's a top-tier unit. Maybe they'll force some stops on Justin Herbert, so I think you gotta go with the Ravens. And lastly, on Monday night, an NFC North battle between the Vikings and the Bears. Part of me has some intrigue here, as the Bears looked pretty good against the Lions last week. They let that one slip away from their fingertips practically, but in general, the common consensus is that this team just looks a lot more exciting and a lot more motivated with their guy Justin Fields back. That is a big dynamic playmaker for them, and maybe he could do something against this Vikings team and make this interesting. The Vikings just came off a heartbreaking loss against the Broncos. Maybe they question themselves a bit. That could open up the door for an upset here, and I could actually see this being a close contest. But I think I gotta rock with the Vikings here. Overall, the last month and a half, they have been a solid football team. They've been one of the hottest teams in the league, in fact. I like how they're playing on both sides of the ball. They're a more complete roster than the Bears, who have some obvious holes. And I think there's a world where maybe Justin Fields has some trouble in the pocket because that Vikings pass rush is really good. And I think in the end, Josh Dobbs will be able to do enough to get by that Bears defense and get Minnesota a well-needed win in the playoff race. And that's going to do it for my Week 12 NFL predictions. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments below and who you have winning the games as well. And of course, enjoy the games this week. This is always a very fun time of year. Just eating some good food while watching some football. Hopefully, if your team's on Thanksgiving, you don't rage over them too much. Enjoy the games, guys. Make sure to like this video and subscribe if you're new for more NFL content just like this every single week. Peace out.